Okay, I'm Greg Zolnerowich. I'm the curator at Kansas State University. I came there in 1999. I'd love to be more of a curator. I'm actually evaluated on 30% museum, 20% research, and 50% teaching at the highest teaching appointment, which is always a sore point when it comes to why aren't you doing more.
Yeah, I don't think that works.
Oh, where's the?
So you're gonna have to.
Oh, it's got to have the little. There we go. Just have to move this over. Ooh, that was a bad thing. No, I don't want Japanese. Let's just close that out. There we go. This ought to work. Brandon. Yeah, that's all right. Yes, it does work. Right before I came, our department head at the time changed our collection name to the Museum of Entomological and Prairie Arthropod Meat Research, KSU MEPAR. It's a horrible name, I hate it, but we seem to be stuck with it. We were established in 1879, and since we are the land-grant institution, we do have a historical emphasis on the Great Plains fauna and insects that were important to agriculture. In addition to being a research collection, we are also a reference collection. So extension personnel, insect diagnosticians, and people like that also use our collection. I have no idea how many specimens we have. I've been here for 12 or 13 years. I was told we had 800,000 specimens when I arrived. That's going to be a gross overestimate. They didn't know how to count back then. But we're a very good general and historical collection. Many of our specimens were collected from the 1880s through the 1920s, before there was a lot of major land use change. So we have good representation of the fauna before a lot of agriculture and ranching and things like that took place. We're very strong in things like Orthoptera, robber flies, and as I said, a good general collection. Derek Blocker was my predecessor, so we have cabinets and cabinets of leafhoppers. We probably have 7 or 8 cabinets and thousands of leafhoppers. Our type collection has 53 holotypes, a couple thousand paratypes, and those represent 670 species. Since I arrived, my emphasis is in parasitic Hymenoptera, so I've done a lot of collecting and building up parasitics in that group. And my technician has his master's in entomology, and he works on noctuids. So we've greatly expanded the Lepidoptera, the general Lepidoptera collection, and especially noctuoids. We're working on a checklist of noctuids from the northern Flint Hills region, which is where we are, and we have about 405 species of noctuidae. Hopefully we'll send that in later this year. I'm going to mention the KSU Herbarium. We're in the College of Agriculture. They're in the Division of Biology in the College of Arts and Sciences. And our growth and development has been kind of parallel, which has been very good for the both of us to form this partnership. The herbarium was established in 1872. You can see how many specimens they have. Once again, an emphasis on the Great Plains and a very valuable historical collection. I'm in agriculture. The herbarium is in arts and sciences. For many years, no one talked to each other. And I came as a young faculty member, and a year or two later, biology hired Carolyn Ferguson and her husband out of University of Texas as their systematic botanists. So we started talking. We are the only 2 research collections on campus, plants and insects. And so we said, this is a natural. We should be putting things together. And the herbarium had a historical tie with Concord Prairie Biological Research Station, which is a tall grass prairie preserve. This is one of the most endangered ecosystems in the country. It's owned by the Nature Conservancy. It's managed by K-State, and it's one of the original NSF LTER sites, long-term ecological research sites. For 30 years, they've gotten $1 million a year to do ecological research there. So they have massive, massive reams of data that is all database that we're sort of riding the coattails on. So there was that connection. In the early 2000s, both Carolyn and I put in separate collection improvement grants to start digitizing. Neither of us got funded. Then a year or two later, we both put in for grants. She got funded to start databasing, and I did not. And then our library underwent a strategic reorganization and planning process. And they, who goes to libraries to even read periodicals or look at books anymore? So their goal was to become a digital repository and clearinghouse for information on campus. So we got together, Carolyn and I, with the library and put in for some in-house Kansas State money through a project known as Targeted Excellence, which was through the Provost's office. And with these goals, to update the physical housing of both collections up to modern curatorial standards, to create essentially a biodiversity web portal that you could search the collections with, and then to look at all this literature that was lining, rows and rows of bookshelves, and figure out what to do with that. And we got $800,000 over a 4-year period that we sort of stretched into a 5-year period. So as far as the curatorial housing of specimens, this is what I came to in 1999. Cabinets from the 1950s and 1960s. A lot of them had no gaskets. Some of the doors didn't close. The drawers were built by a local cabinet maker. They weren't very standard. They didn't seal out their domestics. I spent a whole year freezing the whole collection just to kill out the domestics. So fortunately, we got rid of those, and over a 4-year period, bought new cabinets for the insect collection. I did this over a period of 4 years, just from the logistics of moving cabinets in and out and transferring specimens. The herbarium got all new cabinets. I bought mine from Steel Fixtures in Topeka because they're just down the road, and that saved a huge amount on shipping costs. So, and of course, there's the laborious bit of moving specimen from specimen. We used the old drawers used USNM trays, and of course we're using the Cornell drawers and Cornell unit trays. So we had literally an army of undergraduate students working on that. Got rid of the old things. So hopefully now that both collections are up to modern curatorial standards and protected for the next 50 or 60 years, and no one else will have to mess with that until I'm dead and gone. This was our, of course, the old state of information delivery. You had an insect, you had a label, you had to, have someone transcribe it or mail specimens, or they had to come visit you. So we were both databasing, and we're using Specify. We haven't upgraded to Specify 6 because Specify 5 is working great for us. We have a system in place, and according to Zach, well, some people know about Zach Phelan's problem with Specify 6. We are putting a unique specimen number for each entry, and that gets pinned, so we can always go back to a specimen record and match that to the actual specimen. As of last Thursday, we had 205,000 specimens database. You can see how many taxa and countries. We're doing about 44,000 specimens entered a year. We're up through the scarab beetles, about halfway through the scarabs, and we have a couple of the major orders left to do. Our type specimens, and we have a very large tick collection in alcohol. What you don't see is barcoding. I made the decision not to barcode. We're not mailing out 30 or 40 loans per year. The technology is changing so fast, the human eye will always work. We're not georeferencing either. Some people say, well, you should georeference all this stuff as you go along. I decided if I'm an ecologist or a conservationist that needs very exact georeference information, I would rather download the data and do it myself than trust some undergraduate who was getting paid $9 an hour to do it. Some people wanted us to do a lot of insect photography also. Museum specimens don't make very pretty pictures. A lot of them fade over time, even though they're sealed up and in the dark. And I wanted to put all of my chips on getting as much digital information out there as far as the names and the data, label data goes. So I'm not doing any photography, although we do buy some cool photography equipment. And this is the physical setup that we have, and this is where the botany tie to the cons at LTER comes in. Where I'm actually in one building, the herbarium is in another building, but we actually run through a server that's administered by the physics department in another building. They're used to running very high-end servers, crunching a lot of data. They do all the firewall protection. They do all the backups and things like that. They charge several $1,000s a month to host databases and information. So we're essentially riding the coattail of the cons at LTER database. So we have our specified database for the herbarium on their server. We have the entomology database in specified on their server. They're $1 million a year funding. This database will not go away. That saves us a ton of money. And what our physical presence is to the outside world is another server from our communication and technology people under the library, another building. We have silver collection software, and that goes out and harvests the information from Specify and then presents it through the silver collection interface, which is from a company called Silver Biology, which is Michael Gittens. Some of you know him or know his name. And this is our entry into the herbarium and entomology databases. And this is our public face at the moment. So this is our home page. You can see there's a link to the herbarium. You go this way to search the herbarium database, entomology to search that database, and a couple of other links that I'll talk about in a minute. If you go into either database, it's the exact same interface because it's the same program. You can search the collections, you can browse. I just threw up a couple of screen captures of browsing for what looks like psychedelic. You can pull up the specimen records. You see the unique specimen number that's associated with each specimen. You see some information about the name. We've expanded this to show the collector. You get more information. You can see what's in that genus or that subfamily. And then you can, if there's enough information, you can do the cool Google Map thing and show some approximate location with some error circumscribed around it. And you can, of course, expand all that. You can also sort things based on country. You can do it on state. For Kansas, you can do it even down to the county level. So you can. It's a useful tool for showing where your collection is strong in particular parts of the state, or where you might need to do some more collecting or targeted collecting to round things out. An example of what we're trying to do, the product we're trying to offer is this is Tony Jorn. He's a prairie ecologist. He's using our information on grasshoppers and plants for modeling climate change. So he's using historical data on taxa. He does a lot of manipulative or mechanistic studies out on the tallgrass prairie and integrates those into essentially ecological forecasting of how plants and grasshoppers might change their distribution as the climate changes. So instead of just being dead bugs or dead plants, we're trying to offer something that people can use. And I think this is where collections are really going to play a big role. We have a link for digital resources. Between the herbarium and our collection, we had 420 linear feet of journals and books and revisions and stuff like that. The library people came over, they inventoried those. They scanned some relevant pieces and put those online. Some of these are very old. Flora of Kansas, grasses of Kansas, dating from the 1940s or so. But no one has updated those. So there's still very relevant information in there. We scanned guides to the bark and ambrosia beetles of Kansas, grasshoppers of Kansas. There's also weevils of Kansas. This was done by a guy named Glenn Salisbury. He was our state survey entomologist. The guy's a walking encyclopedia. on insects in Kansas. But he wrote these and published them privately, so they're not really available to the general public. So we scanned those, put them on. They were originally available as PDFs. You would have to download the whole PDF. But then we bought some page-turning software, so you can thumb through these just like you're reading a Kindle, and you can zoom in. You can fill your whole monitor with just one word, so you can zoom in really, really large and see things like that. So that's sort of our digital resource aspect of what we're doing. A couple of scans from the botany side of things that are available. We also wanted to appeal to public schools, and we worked with a couple of high school teachers where we put in some things that public school students could do, and that's here under educational resources. So we did a couple of exercises, going out collecting, how you collect, how you gather data, how you prepare specimens. It's for plants, but you could just plug in insects just as well. So teachers can download the lesson plan of what to do. The students download worksheets and things that they can fill out in the field. There's also an exercise on how do you search a database. What good is an insect or a plant database? And these are tied to specific state educational standards. So we have some teachers using that. So what we have are the insect collection, the botany collection, two distinct entities, but sort of presenting a united face, at least on our campus. And this has worked very, very well for both of us. And this is what we're offering. We're essentially trying to offer a product, which is information for either groups of organisms that people can use. Currently, I have an Institute of Museum and Library Services grant to continue databasing the insect collection. The herbarium is essentially completely databased. I still have a couple of the major orders to do, so we have 3 years of funding for that. We also put in money for the herbarium to capture 20,000 plant images and to put those up online. Dealing with this government organization was very, very different from dealing with NSF. I talked to a program officer on the phone, and he said, we do not fund research collections. Well, yes, they do. You just have to sort of finesse what a research collection is. And if anyone wants to ask me about this organization, I'll be happy to talk. And of course, there's us. Cool logo. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a databaser. I'm a systematist. And for most of this Targeted Excellence project, we had a lot of different people working on it. We had people in my shop. We had people in biology. We had people in the library. We had programmers. We had system analysts. The dean of the libraries, she was a great ally. She got on board very, very early, kicked some money our way, and helped push things to get done if there was ever a bottleneck. Of course, we hired lots and lots of undergrads. We got a ton of money from the provost. We've got additional money from NSF, NSF EPSCoR. The Agricultural Experiment Station kicked in money. Extension, as far as I know, in all states is hurting for money. But the extension people could see the values of having online information, particularly for things like pests and beneficials. So there's our tallgrass prairie. That's our background. And the way we were able to advance both collections was selling the administration and other people of the benefits of having online information. It benefits everyone. It's not just dead organisms sitting in drawers. And the collaboration between my collection and the herbarium and the libraries really, really worked for people to say, hey, this is a really good thing. Look at this great collaborative effort. Let's give them money. That's what I got.